and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book, the book that explains the new paradigm in how to understand human problems. As we've been reading, psychotherapy is a new tradition, it's a new study, it's a new discipline at school, and as such, it doesn't have a model yet. So, there are two things that have happened as a result. Number one, the current model or paradigm that's been used in how to understand human problems is the medical model. It has just lifted the medical model and applied it over, which is, well, bad for a lot of reasons. So we think that problems are caused by physical illnesses, and the way of removing human problems is giving a physical diagnosis. You have this disease or that disease. And how do we treat a physical thing? Well, with a physical pill, that kind of stuff. So that's just where we're at. Also, it is an eclectic tradition. As there is no model, so there's no real study or art yet, people just pick and choose whatever the heck they want, which actually reflects our understanding of philosophy. The way we teach philosophy in our culture isn't really philosophy, it's philodoxia, the love of opinions. Here is a bunch of opinions, just pick whatever ones you happen to like. There is no model of understanding the truth of self and reality, just as there is no model of understanding the deviations from the healthy soul, the healthy mind, the healthy self. So we got no model of the truth, no model of problems. Now, what we are reading is we actually do have a model of each. It has just been neglected for a long time. Socrates is somebody who talked a lot about both. He was a philosophical midwife, which is the new paradigm, the old paradigm, for how to understand and remove human problems. It's the paradigm of what psychotherapy is looking for. It's the only form of psychotherapy that's been empirically verified through validation studies. He also talked a lot about the other thing. The other thing being true philosophy, or the parent philosophy, perennial philosophy. Today we call it Platonic philosophy, as a way of pretending it's just one opinion among many, but it's just true philosophy, which is the method of coming to understand and verify in direct experience the true nature of self and reality, but to do so through a mastering of understanding. You don't just have an experience, you get there through developing an understanding. But as we are human beings, we can't just develop an understanding of what's true, we also have to go through the work of removing our problems, or uncovering and removing what's false. Therefore, this mastery of the art of being a human being, or the art of the logos, or rather what we are calling the art of philodainoia, the love of understanding, involves both understanding the true and understanding the false, so we can purify what's false and use that freedom from our problems to seek, know, master, and integrate into our being what's true. Sound fun? It is fun. That's why all the children cheer. Hear them? That's the fun that we will be having as we learn this art, this new art, philodainoia, the love of understanding. So the word philosophy actually means the love of wisdom, which is why we haven't been doing philosophy in schools, because the wisdom experience is a direct experience of that which is eternal, that we can experience through the cognitive function we have called ousia. Now, you might not have heard about this because we don't have an English word for it, just like we don't have an English word for the joy we feel at somebody's misfortune, but we use the German word Schadenfreude. So we can say, well, that's an English word kind of now. We use it in English. Equally so, we don't have a word for that sense that we have that is able to perceive things, not through the physical senses like the eyes and ears that experience the physical world, but the sense that can apprehend and experience the world of non-physical or being, where causes and principles live. Okay, you recognize yourself in that experience as pure mind. That experience, along with the understanding, is what wisdom is, or Sophia. So the word philosophia means love of wisdom. And as we do not spend our time studying that in modern philosophy classes, and we do not spend our time experiencing that, or as Socrates calls it in the Republic, dwelling in the Isles of the Blessed, you can't say what we've been doing in our culture is philosophy. It just isn't. In fact, Socrates points this out and says, hey, those people who claim to be philosophers but aren't doing this, they're actually lovers of opinions, philodoxia. Just as the method we follow to reach that isn't a debating what opinions you like and owning your enemy through using words to destroy people, it's the exact opposite. The dialectic, the friendly and gentle art of dialectic. A mutual journey together through understanding step by step to reach the truth. So that's the dialectic. And Socrates says, hey, those other people who have a love of opinions, they're not actually interested in the true art that helps people, that is kind, that is understanding. They're interested in fighting and gossip and debate and conflict. Philonikos, lovers of conflict, drama queens. So, Socrates, 2,500 years in the past, is correctly seeing and diagnosing the state that we are in currently. We confuse love of wisdom for love of opinions. We confuse philosophy for philodoxia, and we confuse the art of dialectic for the love of fighting, the love of conflict. And we mistake true knowingness for, which is an understanding of the ideal, a direct apprehension of that model, and using it to benefit. We mistake that true knowledge for a quote that we often hear: knowledge is power. Bullshit. Knowledge is a part of an art that you use to benefit. So because we don't recognize that, we think that what it means to be a knower is inflicting the greatest suffering on our fellow man. Be it a Trump in Epstein Island, be it the Netanyahu in murdering hundreds of thousands of children in Palestine, be it the billionaires keeping 99% of the population in scared for their everyday survival, when we could just simply meet all human needs, keeping people in poverty, slavery, and wage slavery. All of these things are disgusting, completely unnecessary. We don't need any of it. But it exists because we have confused the infliction of suffering as knowing, or the imitation of an unjust model, for the true model of knowing, the true model of art, having an understanding and true knowledge that benefits. So our job is to is to make the transition from ruling our souls in that way, beating ourselves up, sabotaging our own development, criticizing ourselves, to actually treating ourselves artfully, or as Socrates describes it in the Meno, a true friend, being a true friend to yourself, which means learning a new way of being. That new way of being, that artful way of being, is philodianoia. That's what we're learning here. learning how to be a true friend, guide, and ruler of your own self. And then once we get good at that, we can demand it for our leaders in our society so we can stop the insanity and actually live a wonderful life in a wonderful way, in harmony with all living beings and the planet we live on. Wouldn't that be great? Entirely possible, so long as we master this art. So that's what we're doing. Philodainoia has that dialectic applied to truth in philosophy, the dialectic applied to discovering and removing what's false, that's midwifery. To do that, we also need to be doing dream analysis, because that gives you the specific personal details to remove your personal problems and blocks and guide your personal development in philosophy. And add on to that, sharing your understanding with your fellow human beings. It's not a solo quest.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
We're looking for people to share in the archetype of the hero's journey. So, philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and sharing that's called mythology. That's the art, that's what we're here to learn, and that's what we're trying to do on this channel. Share that information and make it fun. Now, what problems do we face with that noble goal of sharing this true art? Well, we're not robots. We're not computers. You can't simply program a code in and then we have that code and we can use it successfully. Nope. Because we have a unsuspected false belief about ourselves and reality that causes our problems, it gets in the way. It wouldn't be much of a block if it didn't block us from that development to the truth. So how does that manifest in our lives? Well, one way it manifests that we have to be aware of is the counterattack. Any significant development, any significant insight, any change in understanding or our way of being is met with the pathologos trying to sustain itself, trying to fight back. That's called the counterattack. Another example of that you can see in your relationships. As you leave the way of being that is the ceiling for people in your family, as you start to reach goals that no one in your family has been allowed to achieve, evolutionarily speaking, you start to venture out of the cave, we are at the caveman level of development. We are still blindly loyal to our tribes within the cave, which had a survival benefit a million years ago, before we could think for ourselves, because as you ventured out of the cave, you would get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. But that's our barbaric history. We are animals, remember? We are still evolving as animals do. We have to evolve out of that. And the way of evolving out of that is to embrace understanding. That's what we have evolved. We didn't have that. So the species of humans that survived were the ones blindly loyal to cave leader. But now we have Nazis and MAGA and capitalists, people who are blindly following Hitler or Netanyahu or Trump and so on and so on. So we haven't evolved to think for ourselves yet. The next stage of evolution is understanding. How do we think? How do we decide whether or not we should be loyal to Netanyahu, whether or not we should be loyal to Trump, whether or not we should be loyal to our parental figures, tribe leader? And of course we shouldn't, ever, because that's fucking stupid. Don't ever be loyal to someone else's ignorance and stupidity. Think for yourself. Be loyal to truth that you can see for yourself through understanding. Anyone who says you can't understand, just be ignorant and believe me, just have belief or faith or loyalty, is a terrible, terrible person. Do not listen to them. Do not believe them. Don't just believe me telling you that. Think about that for yourself. And think about all of the terrible, terrible things that people have done because they were just following orders. Okay, so our next level of evolution, individually, personally, spiritually, and collectively, is understanding. How to think for ourselves, how to see for ourselves, because we see through our understanding. We see and think and function through our understanding. Therefore, this art is philodainoia. But we also understand that our pathologos, an unsuspected false belief that keeps us loyal to what we think is good, it isn't. It's actually the image of goodness from when we were too young to have words, before we could understand things, when we're little babies. That's where it came from. That's the pathologos. It has a counterattack. So, if Socrates was a master of philodainoia, why did we kill him? Before he sufficiently shared that art with everyone. And so his student Plato didn't get midwifery, didn't get dream analysis. He was able to record many of his other dialogues, so we got the philosophy part, got one of the four. But even after that, the Nazis and the Christian church, Emperor Justinian, burned down the libraries, burnt down the academy, killed all of the philosophers, and prevented us from understanding. You can't read the books yourselves. If we catch you with the book, we will chop off your head. You have to have blind loyalty to us. The murderous, ignorant, terrible people at the top with the big funny hats. Today they have red hats, and we call them MAGA. So, why did we sacrifice our own understanding and development to play this ignorant, barbaric game of blind faith or blind belief in authority? That's the counterattack. Similarly, as we go through this learning ourselves, when we start to venture out of the cave, you might notice your family members or your old friends trying to do whatever they fucking can to pull you back. Sometimes we call that crabs in a crate or tall poppy syndrome. But really what it is the counterattack played out through our everyday drama. Family member will say, I've been thinking about you. What about coming over for dinner or having Thanksgiving, or tell me about what you love so I can crush it? And feel that superiority that I feel, and the sadistic pleasure of crushing somebody else because I mistake this cruelty or this imitation of crushing somebody for knowing. Because isn't knowing power? Isn't it what it means to be knowing? No. You have never done midwifery and questioned the people who crushed you. You are blindly projecting and imitating that same ignorance in the world. That's what we should say, because it's the truth. So, this counterattack has played out historically with the murder of Socrates, and then later on, the beginning of the Dark Ages, where everything went to shit, and the authority figure says, no understanding for you, plebs. You must have blind obedience and sacrifice, be selfless, and sacrifice your self-goals for the tyranny of the oppressors. Like the tyranny of our parents in childhood. That's not a personal attack, it's just part of being human being at this stage of evolution. Now, in hearing that, the normal reaction is, not my parents. Of course, it wouldn't be much of a block if we didn't have a block to hearing that it's a block. That's the issue. That's why it's difficult. That's why it requires courage and truth-seeking above all. Otherwise, you do fall for the counterattack. Not my religion, not Christianity. Surely we didn't kill anybody. Well, what about the allegiance with the Nazi Party? What about the Crusades? What about the death of all of the philosophers? What about the Dark Ages that ensued? What about all of the problems over and over and over and over and over again? So one of the features of the pathologos is it makes you blind to, or defensive about, or confused by any evidence or reason that shows that your personal beliefs are wrong. So conveniently, we ignore all of the many, many terrible atrocities perpetuated by our religion or our culture. Equally so, that's the historical equivalent, and the historical counterattack, the murdering of Socrates, and the shutting down of the academy in the Dark Ages. That's the historical version of the counterattack. The everyday drama is the counterattack from your parents. Surely not my parents. The parents next door, they're alcoholics, they're terrible. And the parents across the street, yeah, they're ignorant. And the guys up the street, they have some crazy religion. That's really child abuse when they teach that awful religion to their kids. But not my parents. That's the blind spots and the amnesia that come along with having a pathologos. So collectively, with the death of Socrates, every day with our family members trying to counterattack and pull us back into our old way of being, tied to our false images of what it means to be loving, and personally, so for our species, for the collective, and for us individually, we have counterattacks. So as we go through this process of learning and mastering Philodainoia, you will find yourself having counterattacks. The greater the insight, the greater the counterattack. The greater the jump in development, the greater the counterattack. The greater the new understanding that can potentially free you from your problems and help you reach your most significant personal goals and spiritual goals, the greater the counterattack. It's just how it works. Do not blame yourself for having a counterattack, but do not be ignorant of it either. So, that's something very important to acknowledge for anybody getting into the game or anyone new to the game. But also, our last episode, we had a huge insight. Not only did we find a way of organizing the 12 steps of midwifery, the most important activity any human being can go through. We all should therefore be going through it. We saw how midwifery is necessary, as it's the art of solving problems. So what we would call psychotherapy nowadays, but really it's under the banner of philosophy. Well, that's one of the questions that we asked in chapter 1. Is this if this is Socrates' art of understanding ideas through the dialectic, isn't that philosophy? So can we say psychotherapy is a subsection of philosophy? Or because solving human problems is super, super important, can we say philosophy is the method of psychotherapy? Now, we have sidestepped that problem by saying, well, actually, they are both aspects of a higher art called Philodainoia. So, as you can read the subtitle, it says Philosophical Midwifery, the new paradigm. Not a paradigm, the new paradigm of understanding human problems. So, seeing as we saw how significant it is for our species, for our collective, our society, and for us as souls, we saw how significant learning and understanding the 12 stages in this art is. Super, super important and meaningful. So therefore, learning and understanding and remembering these 12 steps would be the most important thing you can do as a human being. And so we spent the last a couple of weeks going through chapter 4 to nail it down. And our last episode, we nailed it down. How do we nail it down? By recognizing that these 12 steps can be understood within the structure of the dialectic. The dialectic is the structure of the logos. The logos being the understandable and knowable nature of reality. We can create, we can solve problems, we can invent stuff because we can understand. So, this new stage of evolution, love of understanding, allows us to perceive correctly the nature of the reality we find ourselves in, allowing us to navigate our way through the stages of evolution or the stages of spiritual development. But we're at an interesting stage where we still have the pathologos ruling us, so human beings have the potential for the development of understanding, philodynoia, allowing us to completely evolve in the best possible way, in the highest possible way, which would make us not only the greatest ruler of ourselves, but complete our work. So as the Hindus would say, escape the cycle of our reincarnation. But also, if we as a species can complete all of the stages of evolution through understanding, we might have a very interesting and important role within the greater cosmos. However, the double-edged sword is we can also be the worst sons of bitches because of the pathologos, which is the distortion of the logos. So, as we gain understanding, we can integrate it into our being and carry it with us, see through it, function with it in the best possible way. But until we do midwifery, there is something else, its image, its distortion sitting in the way, causing us to act, function, and identify with what's false, causing us to do the worst possible things. So human beings can literally be the worst possible creatures, but also, if we embrace the love of understanding, we have the potential to be the best. That's where we are. That's the turning point. This is where the drama of human evolution turns. We either embrace philodynoia, or we allow ourselves to have our brains eaten by the psychic parasite of the pathologos. Zombies eating ourselves. That's where we are right now. We have the zombie virus. Why do we call it a zombie virus? Because we don't have the pathologos, it has us. And it saps our energy. It's a psychic parasite, like a virus. And it keeps us chained to a script. Everything we say and do in our life propels us towards a certain goal, where we pass on that infection to whoever we can. We eat the brains of someone and then they turn into a zombie. But also, it prevents us from becoming intelligent, like a zombie. We can only say a few words. We repeat the same script. Brains, brains, brains. So, we are zombies. Metaphorically, the pathologos is the zombie virus. So what? So, considering all of this, we can recognize how important it is to master or understand, nail down, the 12 stages in the dialectic. And we did that. The 12 stages in the art of solving human problems. The map, the paradigm. We nailed it down, which will help us remember it and use it by attaching each section to the 4 categories of the dialectic. Because that's the model for understanding. If our evolution is through understanding, the model is the dialectic. We see this also in Plato's Republic. The training of the philosopher king, all of the development of the virtues, the courage, the temperance, the wisdom, the justice, the 4 virtues. The upgrade to a special virtue of the self-phronesis. The 5 studies of the philosopher king. Arithmetic, geometry, solid geometry, astronomy and harmony, which are all metaphors. They're not actually the way that we teach them in school. It's all about knowing the self and being and functioning through that in a charming way. The 3 preliminary studies of gymnastics, or the 2 of gymnastics and music. Learning how to generate energy and maintain your energy. And music. How can you judge states of mind of people? Again, metaphors. All of this training in the Republic is leading up to the development of the single art, the dialectic, in the Republic. So we can see the significance of nailing down this art with the dialectic structure, and we did it. Not only that, right after giving us this conclusion in Book 8, in Book 9, Socrates says you can't do any of this unless you are also doing dream analysis, because you can't remove the blocks you have to this learning of the dialectic unless you are also doing dream analysis to get the details of your personal pathologos and be guided along the way. So what? So therefore, if we gained a understanding of the most significant thing for all living beings, especially you, especially humanity, not only that, we discovered when we applied the structure of the dialectic to it that there were a few hidden steps. There was a twist to be solved. It was a hidden question. We didn't get all of the stages. We had to fill it out ourselves. But after doing that, we realized there was a second twist. This is how Socrates and Plato writes as well. There's usually a question as well that he gives you to solve, and then once you address that, you realize there's a second question. So we use a Christopher Nolan movie to talk about the twists. Like, there's the regular story that Grandma recognizes when she goes and watches Inception at the theater. But then you realize that the author has given you a twist when he leaves the top spinning at the end. You have to go through it again and solve that question. But then in doing so, you discover a new question. So he gives you the question, you find the answer in the twist, and then you discover a third question or another question, and you have to discover both the question and the answer to get that third twist. What was the movie really about? You won't be able to figure that out until you figure out that first question. Same thing for Fight Club. When you realize Tyler Durden wasn't actually a dude, go through and solve the puzzle. And then after you do that, realize who else wasn't real. Can you use that twist to discover a question that isn't given to you, but is there? So these are metaphors to help understand how to read. We did that. We found that there was a secret question, and then in answering that, because we were applying the model or paradigm, we recognized that, hey, this question that we just answered needs 3 more parts, because that's the structure of the dialectic. So what? So we had a fantastic, we did well with our understanding, and we gained new insights into the deeper significance or the higher functioning of philosophical midwifery. So we had a significant improvement in our understanding, significant insights that can allow for significant change in our lives. The most important changes in our lives. So what comes with those 3 things? Whenever you have any one of those 3 things, it comes along with you guessed it, the counterattack.
Is this chat full of dumb content? It's sad, and I'm sad for you.
Counterattack comes. So what? Well, fortunately, after yesterday's reading, we had a dream analysis episode where I was able to review my dreams and, again, unpack the meaning and content of it to gain the providence, the care, the messages from our guru. Our dreams are our guru. Because we were doing dream analysis yesterday. And what do you know? My dreams were a message about my counterattack. So I got a little bit of a heads up from my dreams, which is a kind thing to do. a beneficial thing to do. So sometimes we get nightmares. But if we unpack it through the dialectic, we'll see that every nightmare is a kind of strong alert to something you're ready to see. Something important for you to see, something that's urgent for you to see, or something you are ready to see that you need to pay special attention to. Because all dreams are a message in that way. So, wasn't a particularly pleasant dream, but in unpacking it, looking for that same dialectic we've been discovering in our reading on this channel, I was able to get a bit of a heads up about a counterattack that we have understood by reading this book is inevitable. So what? So that means I'm in the counterattack right now. A certain feeling state, a certain state of mind, certain way of being, old habits in how I hold myself in my face, certain habits how I anticipate things will go. I went to the gym this morning and my old fears about going to the gym came up. The way that I project onto others, that person probably thinks that person probably doesn't like me because of that reason. So my thinking, my feeling, and my functioning were all negative. I got that expected call from a family member. Hey, been thinking about you. Want me to fuck you over again? I mean, do you want to pretend because, oh, dear mummy or dear daddy doesn't want you to judge? We love you, right? Your job is to be ignorant and ignore the truth, because that's what it means to be loving in the Pathologos family tribe. It's not personal, it's part of being a human being. Expect it. Got one of those calls, had that experience, so on and so on. It sucks to be in it because it feels bad. It feels real while you're in it. That's why we need courage to hold on to the truth that we are learning through the Logos, through our understanding, through this next stage of evolution, Philadelphia, love of understanding. Even though what's false, our old beliefs, the old way of being, feels real. That's courage. As well as recognizing in the Republic that courage is holding on to an understanding that the Pathologos is the thing that gods and men hate the most. It's a false idea of self and reality, held in the most important part of our soul. It sucks. It feels bad. Your view of reality will be, oh, I can't do it. Your anticipation, we saw this last time, the way we anticipate reality. Things are probably going to go terribly. People will not like me for this reason. And not only that, my dream yesterday gave me some specific information about the, while this is universal, it's just part of being human, the specific personal details that occupy the content of your personal counterattack will be unique to you. Every Pathologos is unique. We're like a snowflake in that way. And I got some specific information about what to expect of my own one. I am an inconvenience. Pay attention to these jerks who are just going to block you, not listen, steamroll you, and any success you have, they'll try and worm their way in and block you. Try and share the Logos with them, not these other people who are bright and shiny, more rambunctious, women, not men, in the dream. Who can understand and recognize, even if they're new to the game, but also can help, so they're healers. Look out for the healers. Not what you're used to. Because normally the people who pretend to be interested in philosophy are dudes. Oh, yeah, oh, let me hear about that so I can pretend to be a Noah, that kind of shit. Now, that's something unique to my family and my cultural background, my milieu. It allowed me to look out for it. So I've practiced today I had to practice understanding it, recognizing it, addressing it through the dialectic, like a friend. Oh, by the way, that's interesting that you are saying that. Kakadaimon, voice of the pathologos. By the way, if a friend told me this, I wouldn't blindly obey them, blindly believe them. I'd ask them questions. Oh, you think I shouldn't do this thing? Why? If your friend says, I think you should stop taking dance lessons, you wouldn't go, oh, okay. You say, wait, why? Why do you think that? And they might say, oh, because you suck and no one likes you. You wouldn't say, oh, okay. Well, hang on a second, wait a minute. What reason and evidence do you have to come to that conclusion? What are you seeing? And then they would have to show that they don't know and they're projecting and it's just their own problem. That's how you treat a friend, always. It's not what the Pope and the King and the President demands, because they're not friends, they're fuckers, they're tyrants and thieves of your development. Don't ask questions. Hey, priest, what was God doing before he invented the world? Inventing a hell for people like you who ask such questions. So we don't do that. We don't act tyrannically. We don't listen to tyrants. We don't believe tyrants. If we are learning understanding. Equally so, the voice of the tyrant that manifests in our mind, the old echoes of our parental figures that manifest when we have a significant insight, understanding, or development of being, the counterattack, we don't blindly obey them either because they're tyrannical. We treat them like a friend. This is what it means to be a master of the friendly dialectic. Now, what they will say, hey, what it means to be loving is to, like Dom Torino said in Fast and Furious, always verbally, verbally. That's stupid. He is stupid. He can race cars fast, but that doesn't make him smart. That idea of love, blind obedience to tyrants who happen to imitate our parental figures, who are themselves imitating their own parents, and so on, all the way back to the cave, that's a sick idea of love. True love is based on understanding. The art of true love is the art of the dialectic, as described specifically in the Meno, which we just finished reading. To be a true friend and lover is the gentle art of the dialectic, the art of philodianoia. So, while the kaka daemon, the bad daemon, the internal voice that echoes our tyrannical parents and our tyrannical way of being, that we're angry about, that we project onto others and then get angry at those people. Hey, I'm not doing that thing. Shut up. Punch, punch, punch. That's the source of our projections, that voice that causes our distortions in our perceptions. We would also treat that with the art. Oh, interesting. I wonder why. I'm not going to blindly. In fact, not only am I not going to blindly obey you, you shouldn't be in charge. No tyrant should be in charge. We know that from Netanyahu and Trump and Hitler and Putin and all these other people. We've seen it over and over again. The tragic consequences that if you allow a tyrant to be in charge. So, not only am I not going to blindly obey you, I'm going to ask you questions, being a true friend and lover. Not only that, but you're not the one in charge. You're not the one leading the conversation, pal. You're not the one leading the interview, pal. I'm leading the interview. I'm the one with the art of the dialectic. You have the destruction of the dialectic, love of Nikos, philonikos, love of fighting, which is anti-logos. That's the word Socrates gives it, anti-logos. And philonikos, love of fighting. The tyrant state of mind as described in the Republic. So, not only are you not being listened to, I'm going to ask you questions, but you're not in charge, pal. This guy's in charge. Somebody who is doing their best to master the true love, the art of true love, true knowing, true benefit, the dialectic. Philodainoia. Let me ask you some questions. So, we get to practice being a midwife to ourselves when we face our counterattacks. So you can say, well, doesn't it suck that we're human beings and we get a counterattack? Isn't that a terrible universe to be in? Well, the answer would be yes, if we didn't have what we needed to practice the art of understanding. If you recognize that we are here and we have what we need to master the art of philodainoia, hey, these counterattacks are a fantastic opportunity to practice being a philosophical midwife. Not only that, you get to practice it while you're in the shittiest states of mind. The most pessimistic, the most negative feeling, the most difficult to engage in this way, feeling most like a child or slave, less like a leader. The double-edged sword of being a human being, which is the movement from the tragic story, or the model of the tragic hero, where we are tragic. Every tragic story, the tragic hero has a blind spot, his tragic flaw, a blind spot about his tragic flaw, and therefore plays in his life, in the drama, the implications of not addressing that tragic flaw. Now, in every tragic story, there should be somebody who gives them what they should have used, some sort of supernatural aid, so that the audience knows, so the audience is aware, he should have paid attention to that, but he's blind from that, so the audience gets wrapped up in the drama. Oh no, pay attention to what this person Gandalf was saying.
You're a wizard, Harry.
The difference is, the only way of addressing our tragic blind spots that prevent us from addressing and freeing ourselves from our tragic flaw is philosophical midwifery, is philodainoia, the art of the dialectic, the art of understanding, applied to our pathologos. So we have what we need to not have to go down that tragic tale, that tragic line, with that tragic conclusion. But it still feels bad when you're in it. That's where I am right now. Because of our great insights in our last reading, thankfully we did dream analysis, so I got a heads up and I got some specific details. Because not only does it feel bad, we are blind from what is the content. We are blind from the specifics of, because we think it's real. What we anticipate others will think, what we choose to do with our day, our feeling of tiredness, I want to go to sleep, but I have no energy. Our forgetfulness, I can't do, there's so many tasks, I feel overwhelmed. These sort of feelings feel real. They're normal, we're used to it. So we don't recognize it, doesn't stand out as anything unusual. Which is why the pathologos is stronger even than enlightenment. Because people have had enlightenment experiences or insight experiences or changes of being like we had last time. But what's more familiar, normal, is those other ways of being. So someone might take acid and have an awakening experience, give them a week, they'll be back into their problems. That's the counterattack, showing us that not only is philosophical midwifery the most important thing we can do, necessary in everything that humans do, but the false belief that it's here to address, the pathologos, is the strongest force in the human universe. In the universe itself. Because we are animals who have evolved to the point of logos, words, language, and ousia, the ability to reflect upon ourselves, meaning we have what we need for understanding. And as this high level of evolution, greater than the animals that preceded us, we recognize that what binds us to our tragic problems, our zombie virus, is the pathologos, even after enlightenment experiences, showing us, demonstrating what we have defined as the most powerful force in the universe. So, midwifery, the most important, the most profound, the most helpful, the art of psychotherapy, the art of spirituality, the thing that actually benefits if you're interested in actually being someone who benefits people, but also the most challenging and formidable foe. The archetype of the great dragon the hero slays to become the hero in the hero's journey. And we face that in our counterattacks. So, a little heads up for anybody else on the journey, and honest sharing, telling the truth about me, a human being, also going through that process. The state of mind I'm in, but I can recognize it, trying my best to dialectic it away. To distinguish what I take to be true as not actually true, based on what we're learning about self and reality through philosophy, midwifery, and dream analysis. And we keep moving forward. Because, hey, there's only two choices. Keep moving forward in our seeking of the truth, or give up and allow the zombie virus to take over our lives and make our entire life a homage, a display of, and the playing out of the tragic injustice of the pathologo zombie virus. There's only two options. You're going to be a walking dialectic of the self-logos to truth, or a walking dialectic of the pathologos, being a force for injustice to your soul and to the world. So, when you realize that those are the only two choices on the table, kind of makes choosing the good one easier, even when we're in a counterattack. On that note, let's jump in to chapter 5. Here we go. I might go for a walk down to the library today to scan the Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven, for the next philosophy text for our reading. I was thinking either that or the symposium. I don't know. Can we do both? Maybe both. I don't know. See, Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven, is a dialectic, but it's written by a modern master of the logos, the author of this book. Whereas the symposium is Socrates. Socrates' conversation. And the yoga of love. And he talks about his spiritual teacher, who's a lady. So considering the dream that we had yesterday was about, I talked to Pierre, who is a spiritual guru, of course, and the dream said, in the dream, I tried to share this with there were three different men who kept getting in the way, but then there were 2 or 3 women who were open and receptive to this. So maybe reading the dialectic, which talks about the yoga of love and demonstrating a female philosopher queen, might be the right way to go. I don't know. Still thinking. If you have ideas, you can share them in the Discord. There's a link below that you can join. So let's jump into chapter 5. Oh, and by the way, the more midwife talks you have, the more you become familiar with your individual pathologo state of mind. The more you see that all of the individual states of mind or individual problems are like cogs within a whole. So there's a unity or a monad behind it. And that means that you are going to get better at recognizing what's false. whether it be when you're approaching your meaningful goals or your something that you consider meaningful or beautiful, you'll be able to recognize when it comes up, so you can recognize this isn't true. Don't let it rule my soul. I'm gonna keep moving forward with courage. Or in the counterattack, when it feels real, you can go, I know this feels real, but I can recognize some things. But I also recognize by recognizing those things, you can also recognize what you need to do instead. So I heard a really great conversation today about different techniques that people have to overcome blocks they have. When they recognize they have a block, when they recognize they're in a sleepy or tired state of mind, they might write things down, or only write down one task and forget the other ones, because being overwhelmed might be one of the states of your pathologo. So saying only one task, that's it. And then you might find you'll actually accomplish a lot of things, but you won't have gotten overwhelmed, that kind of thing. Another example is, for me, breathing is a big one. So in my pathologo state, I have difficulty breathing. So having recognized that over years of midwife talks and dream analysis, and having practiced having practiced breathing techniques a lot, often, ideally at all times, when I am in that counterattack state or that pathologo state, I have that tool at my disposal. Oh, I normally wouldn't have recognized it. So that feeling of tiredness would have been helped by really shallow breathing. That would have been normal. I always breathe this way. This is just normal breathing. But I'm getting so tired. One of the reasons you're getting tired is because you're not breathing really well. So, do you see how it works? See how the aspects of your problem can fit together to produce a great result? And can you see how in dream talks and midwife talks, becoming familiar with the aspects involved allow you to develop techniques to employ when you need them the most? Like deep breathing or writing a list, that kind of thing. So just a little bit of extra stuff for no extra cost. Let's read. Chapter 5, Dialogue Summaries. To explore the ideas of philosophical midwifery further, we will refer to the 2 dialogues selected for analysis. Estimates of the total number of midwife talks that I have midwifed myself, and including the talks of others I have reviewed, is based on my old appointment calendars, since I have no other records of these talks. These are easily estimated to be in the thousands, for they span 25 years. And most of them have been audio taped. With the advent of the video camera, some are videotaped. So when was this book written again? Where's my hard copy? I'm going to check my hard. Got my hard copy. This book was written in Copyright 1998. And he lived another 25 years after that. So, thousands in 25 years and even more later in his life. I was over in California with him a few times, and I could see that after every meeting, sometimes we'd meet in the morning to read philosophy, sometimes every day of the week, sometimes meditating as well. But after every meeting or every reading group, as soon as it finished, it was like snap. Everyone was like, snap, 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 snap. Can I have a talk? 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 And people would race to be the first one to ask Pierre for a talk. So everywhere, all times. So, could be dozens a day for 25 years. And I've myself have had many and have viewed like everything that had been recorded, or when I was there in person, other people's talks and stuff. I think I tried to calculate once. It was, I don't know, it was over 2,000. Yeah. So I think his would be like in the hundreds of thousands. Most of them had been audio taped, and with the advent of the video camera, some are on videotape. For our purpose here, the talks chosen are the ones I midwifed, and the volunteers, or the pregnant parties, will be referred to... Oh, by the way, anyone watching along in chat, any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in. The volunteers or pregnant parties will be referred to as Subject A and Subject B. Members of the Noetic Society, that's the group of people that I was with. Noetic Society, who had participated in many midwife talks, were asked to volunteer one of their audio tapes for analysis. The first 2 volunteers were used in this analysis. Interesting, you just picked the first 2. Of course, because it's all good. Same thing with dreams. Like people say, oh, my dreams aren't long like yours, or I only remembered a little bit of my dream, or I smoked too much weed and I could only remember like a few states of mind, if anything. And it's always the same answer. Dreams are always profound and anything is worthwhile. There are lots of stories about that as well, by the way. Lots and lots of stories. The audio tapes were selected by those volunteering them, and the reasons and methods for selecting were not known to the research team. As it turned out, these talks were conducted several years previously, so that these volunteering their tapes could not have known at the time of their talks that they would be used in the study. That's another thing. That's a thing, like, yeah. They're not putting on a show. The tapes were transcribed. A summary of each talk was made, and a summary was made of each 5-minute interval of the dialogue. See the numbered paragraphs below for each subject. For each of these intervals, representative quotes were included from the talks. The complete talks were about an hour and a half. During each of these sections, a blackboard was used, like we have, see? The dialectic on the blackboard. Am I streaming and recording? Yes. During each of these sessions, a blackboard was used to outline the development of the dialogue. In this way, the subject could observe the session as a whole and reflect on the content of his words and thoughts, and also reflect on the similarities between the present situation and the past scenes. That's why we write them on the board. Always write them on the board. Or if you're meeting over coffee, I said coffee, so we have some coffee. Cheers. Cheers. It's almost empty. Boo for empty coffee cup. So yeah, always write it on the board because people forget. People say, I didn't say that. Number one. Number two, yes it is written on the board. Counterattacks within the talk themselves. Not only that, you can see the puzzle pieces, so it's easier. Like when you play a Sherlock Holmes video game. I don't know if you guys like those video games. I like them a lot. Yeah. I won't get into a rabbit hole about what video games I like, but I like the Sherlock Holmes ones. You collect clues, and then it's like displayed on a notebook or something, and so you can see it and you can piece it together. Similar sort of thing here. You can see the whole thing. You can reflect on the contents, the clues, the words, and thoughts, and reflect on the similarities between the present situation and the past scenes. You can see, oh, that's what's happening in my life. Look at it happening on the board here. Or this is a description of the parts of my present scene. Next to it is a description of the early scene where I learnt my pathologo state of mind, where I picked up my zombie virus. The use of the blackboard is encouraged because it is a simple way to fix the subject's mind on the development of their thought, to keep the issue before them. Right. This is another interesting thing because this is in a mean analogy. We've talked about mean analogies earlier as the model of actual learning versus the stagnant analogy of the pathologos. A is to B as A is to B. That's a dumb analogy. That's stagnant, doesn't go anywhere. Mum is to me as I am to whoever I have power over when I pass on the pathologos. Whereas the true model, diathema, is to Socrates as Socrates is to us. And then as we learn it, we can pass it on. So it keeps going. But in a mean analogy, there is that central focus. We become like diathema through Socrates. We focus on Socrates. Diathema focuses on Socrates. That shared median or mean allows for that connection. Similarly, in a relationship, what we've been learning about the true model of love, or true model of, not the pathologos model, blind allegiance to ignorance, but that you try and force your partner to be like your parents and stuff. That's why relationships are usually terrible, have problems, let's say. But in a true loving relationship, you have that third party that you can both focus on. The model of excellence you both want to achieve, so you can both move towards that shared focus. You're not trying to manipulate them into your pathologos and vice versa. So we can talk about causes, that's fun. Should we get into it now? Oh. I kind of want to talk about causes.
Wow.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick. That's the wrong button. How about I just plant some seeds when I get into it a lot. See how we have these, the model, the dialectic we're trying to see in everything? And then in our last reading, we had the question, well, hang on a second, maybe there is a hidden fifth category. Well, a way of understanding where we are at as a society and why we have the problems we have. One way of understanding it is to look at how we understand causes. We call them the Aristotelian causes. We are stuck below, we don't have the logos and providence, so we don't have what we need to solve problems yet. because we are stuck in materialism, which is stuck in the world of becoming. And we're blocked from the realm of being. That's being. This is where the Logos and Usia live, necessary to understand and reflect on ourselves and solve problems. But we are currently, at our level of evolution, stuck in the physical world of becoming. Everything in the physical world is growing or decaying. Becoming. So, our thinking is limited, so that's why we're stuck. Until we love understanding, because philodynoia can make that jump. Because you can understand the physical world and its limitations, and you can also understand the realm of being, and you can use this understanding of being to solve problems in the physical world and solve problems and develop in the world of being, because the level of being isn't the final stage either. So, our understanding of causes is a big deal. We talk a lot about causes on the channel. The good people in the world are trying to reflect on the causes of problems, or the causes and principles, the causes and preconditions for the problems we face. Capitalism, wealth inequality, not having our physical needs met, suffering, all these sort of preconditions and causes. But also the principles. Hey, we should have a law that applies to rich and poor equally. It's not a principle if it doesn't apply universally. So these are the good people in the world that we're interested in and we want to share a love of understanding with. But if we understand what we call the materialist or the Aristotelian causes, and I can write it a bit neater than that, we can understand that our way of thinking has what we need to cause our problems, but lacks what we need to solve them. So we think, well, normally we think, okay, what do you need to build a house? You need wood or stuff. You need a builder. You need the blueprints that he looks at. And of course, you have a final cause or a need. So it's the first and final cause. So you begin this process of building a house, first and final, sometimes called the telos, that for the sake of which. First and final cause. The need for a house. That for the sake of which. That's the first cause, because if someone didn't have a need for the house, they wouldn't go out and hire a builder and buy wood. But also it's the final cause, because that's how do you know you're finished? You got a house to live in now. These are understood as the 4 Aristotelian causes, but they're missing one, because there is another cause no good just having a builder if he doesn't also have a skill to apply to the wood in accordance with the blueprints to meet that need. So we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we add the logos and ousia to each of them, what do we get? What's the first and final cause? What's the telos? What's our highest purpose or destiny? To know the one or the good self. By the way, unless you have an idea of the self, can you do philosophy? No. Philosophy is seeking the truth about knowing thyself. By the way, what's the cause of the pathologos, the distorted belief or image about the self? If you say there's no such thing as a house, there's only physical things like, there's no such thing as the self, there's just physical things like houses and mousetraps and nuclear bombs, you can't get into midwifery. You can't solve problems because there's a distorted view of the self. In midwifery, you need the model or paradigm. The paradigmatic cause. This guy. You need the instrumental cause. The builder or the dialectician. Hey, you need someone in an open, curious state of mind who is seeking truth above all else, seeking truth, and also wants to get it with excellence. They don't just want to have it for a little while and give it up. They don't want to half get truth and then sometimes lie to their friends. Truth and excellence. There's no dialectician or midwife. Can you solve problems? Nope. If there's no paradigm of the true nature of justice and beauty, can you challenge the false appearance from our parental figures? If we're not motivated by reaching the self or an unfolding of the providence and logos from the one self, is there any reason to begin this to begin with? If you reject that there can be an idea of the self or there is a true self, then hey, anyone's ego is fine. Everyone's opinion's right. But here's the thing. There is the dialectician. There is the you, the subject. But the dialectician is using the paradigm. That's the model that they're using to guide the questions and to judge whether or not the models of beauty is actual beauty. Motivated by, well, really following the logos of the one self. The true excellence of being a midwife is sort of getting out of the way, allowing the self to guide. So it's the self of the dialectician using the paradigm. But as somebody starting midwifery, someone in a problem, someone with a pathologos, we don't know the paradigm because we have the false paradigm. We don't know the true nature of the self because we have the pathologos. So the dialectician and the subject live in two completely different worlds. There needs to be something that we can both focus on together to allow the providence and benefit to come down from there that we can receive coming up from where we are. So what? Now, maybe I'll get rid of this, because traditionally there are 4 Aristotelian causes. The only way we could have realized that they were missing the 5th is if we realized that, hey, hang on a second, The paradigm, brilliant light of being, is the second hypothesis. Its functioning is the third hypothesis. And there are 2, 3, 4, 5 positive hypotheses, and the whole point is to reach the first. If we recognize that this is the paradigm from our understanding of the Parmenides, we can apply it to its distortion in the physical world, the materialist or Aristotelian causes, the ones we take for granted and see and think through every day, normal human beings, regular human beings, zombie human beings. We recognize, hang on a second, they're missing one. They have the physical equivalent with no logos and ousia as a goal, making money, gaining power, having a house. We accept that there are blueprints that a builder uses, which is a paradigm, but not the paradigm of the logos and ousia. We have an instrumental, a worker, but not a worker that uses logos and ousia. Builder. We have something they work on, but not someone who has a shallow amount of logos and ousia, someone who has a pathologos problem but is open and curious and seeking truth and excellence. So all we're doing is adding logos and ousia, the things that we're lacking because we're not in the third hypothesis yet. That's why we're doing this art. We're adding logos and ousia to all of the Aristotelian causes to find the other set. So we end up with a set if existence is, and a set if logos and ousia or existence does not exist. Which is the dialectic. Every dialectic, so there are 9 or 10 hypotheses of the Parmenides. There are the first 5, or okay, let's take the first one out. So the first one sits alone, especially. But there are the 4 positive hypotheses and the 4 negative hypotheses. Because every dialectic you have to do, hey, I want to explore being, or an aspect of being. I want to explore beauty itself in the Symposium, or justice itself in the Republic. I take my reading and I arrange it according to the dialectic, like we did yesterday for the midwifery. But not just what follows if it does exist, if it is. These are both ifs. If it is, if beauty exists eternally in being, that's what exists means. But you also have to do what follows, or what universe is created if beauty doesn't exist. How would you define it if it doesn't exist? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. How does it function if it doesn't exist? It's just used to manipulate people, and so on and so on. So we can understand the causes that people approach the world through according to the dialectic. We can understand why we have the problems, because we have the causes if the logos and ousia doesn't exist. We can understand what we need to solve human problems and evolve, apply the logos and ousia to those causes to get the set of what it does exist. So this would be the art. This is the art that we're learning, the art of dianoia, the art of the dialectic. And we can also recognize why we're in the situation we're in, because we have the physical causes needed to gain a pathologos, but we don't have the logos and ousia causes required to solve it. So that's fun. It's a bit of a tangent. But the reason I bring it up is there is something that the dialectician and the subject focus on so that we can have that connection. That mean term. We can wonder about what it would be to be adding this mean term in the Aristotelian causes, the one that's normally left out. And we can wonder about what it would be in midwifery. So I'll leave that one open as a question. And the reason why it came up is we're talking about having a blackboard. So you can look at the blackboard and see this. So my mind can connect with your mind. The mean term. So we could call it the mean cause if we wanted to. It's up to us. We're inventing it. It's lacking in Aristotelian causes, so we can make it up. We can get a clue from the fourth hypothesis if we want, because these happen to reflect the five hypotheses of Parmenides. So a fun little puzzle to carry as we keep reading. Oh, and also, by the way, these causes themselves can be used as a way of connecting with your friends or your teachers or your loved ones. Like if you are the sort of person who's interested in this channel and is having a lot of fun with us, because we have so much fun because we do sound drops like this.
That's weird that you think
I've
that.
been a bad little girl.
And I find that very entertaining.
Have so much fun. And we have stuffies. We'll have chicken. You can use these 10 causes to introduce the idea that there is a different world of being, to introduce the idea of logos and ousia that you've been learning in this channel, and to show, hey, we have what we need as a child growing up in a house for a problem. But the reason why we still have Nazis and fascism and capitalism and wealth inequality is because we don't have what we need to solve problems, because that's in the other set. And you can also use this to explain what the dialectic is. The paradigm is the definition of the ideal, the subject itself, being, the second hypothesis. How it functions is through logos and providence, providentially, which is why we do dream analysis. In the third, as the dialectician or the dream master, or the midwife. You, down here, is the other than the self with a problem as a patient, as the subject, but you want to return back to the self. And then there's a middle term where the functioning of the self can relate to another other, others to other others. And if you're doing a dialectic, and there's the first and final cause which sits atop. That was our mysterious fifth. When you find a group of four, you can always wonder about the mysterious fifth that sits atop. That isn't one of the causes per se, but it's the conditions or the prerequisite for the causes. The cause for building a house isn't needing a house, but it's the condition and it's the end goal, the first and final cause. So you can use this handy model as that mean term to communicate what you've been learning about the dialectic, about being, about why philosophy is this is wisdom, knowing and understanding this is wisdom. So philosophy in schools is actually the love of opinions built on Aristotle's tradition, which is a counterattack to Plato and Socrates. That's why when we're learning philosophy, we have to say, it's not this, not what they tell you philosophy is. They're just philodoxia, lovers of opinion in the physical world, that use debate to fight, lovers of Nikos, philonikos. We're learning, by the way, this is that love of debate and opinions and fighting. That's the old model of love that you learn growing up. This is the true model of love. So you can communicate what it means to be in a loving relationship. You can communicate what you've understood about the dialectic. You can communicate what philosophy is versus what it isn't. You can use this to communicate the significance of the logos and ousia, and how us as the best we can do is leave the physical world and become the hyparxis. The most important need that you'll have is not just having a house or having lots of money. It's to solve problems and know the self. And if you realize that, you can reach the top of the world of becoming, which is the beginning of the next realm. So this open, curious person seeking truth can have a foot in this realm and a foot in this realm. To be an open, curious person seeking truth with excellence is the best kind of human being you can literally be. That's the idea of hyparxis. The top of one level, here, is the bottom of the next level, necessary for evolution to make jumps to higher levels. So you can use this to communicate what you learn about hyparxis, logos, ousia, dialectic, what you are learning as a dialectician, the nature of midwifery. This is itself a shared mean cause or mean term that allows for this connection here or here. So I'm giving it to you as a gift. Have fun with it. So I'm talking about now because we're talking about kind of here, the physical version of this, the blackboard. The blackboard you focus on and the dialectician focuses on, so you can come together. Is that here? Is it here? Where would you put the blackboard? In midwifery, do you need a blackboard and a house to do midwifery in and a pencil to write with? So do you need all of them? Can you say that you start and could you put these on top of each other and you start, well, okay, my goal is to get my ass to a midwifery talk, but to do that I have to have a car and I have to have a map for how to get to the place, and I need to, I don't know, have a driver or something, or have the skill of driving a car, and I need a physical car, or I need to meet my physical needs to get there. So could we say that our growth or our evolution is simply moving through all of these causes? So we're we're not just jumping, but we are, hey, if you're building a house, you're still using the wood, you're still using whatever that fourth thing is, you're still using and you can have the best builder and the best wood and the best blueprints to have the best house. So our evolution might not be moving to levels, but gaining the fullness and excellence of every level, and then moving to the next excellence there until eventually we have the whole self. We have the first hypothesis, oneself, along with the apprehension of being, along with the skill of the dialectician, along with whatever this is, along with an open, curious, truth-seeking soul, along with all of the things, the material needs, the friends along the way, the blackboard, everything else along the way. Making sure all human beings are having their physical needs met in harmony with the best blueprints, so we can meet all of our human physical needs in harmony with all animals and all life and all planet, all life and resource on the planet. As the best kind of physical builders, in the most renewable, efficient, sustainable way. In other words, could our development be through the fullness and excellence of each of these causes, leading to these causes, and equally so all the way up to... Can we use this as a model to describe evolution itself? Anyway, bit of a tangent, but lots of fun. The use of the blackboard. Back to the blackboard. The use of the blackboard is encouraged because it is a simple way to fix the subject's mind on the development of their thought. To keep the issue before them and provide a means by which they can face their own thought without the medium of another party playing a role of playing the role of the reminder. I don't have to remind you, it's written up there. Or the interpreter. However, when blackboards are not available, then detailed notes are always made available and become, detailed notes of the talk are always made available and become the property of the pregnant party. These are yours. Put them on the wall. Now, having gone through this many times with Pierre himself, I had a vision that, because it's fun, like it's artful, it's like the best art, because it all comes together, and if it's done, if it's like you're really in the zone, then it's all balanced and the stick figures are there, but it's also the most meaningful thing you've done in your life up till now. So it's like the best painting. So I have a vision that maybe one day we'll have like, so what he would do is he'd have like, not a blackboard, he'd have like, he started doing it with poster board, like big pieces of like paper that you'd like turn over for the next person, and you'd rip them out and you'd give it to the person. You'd fold them up, and I don't know, if you're lucky, you have a place to put them. If you're like me and you didn't live in America, then they'd get lost to time. But my vision is, if you did it with watercolors, then at the end of it, you could maybe spray them so they kind of like bleed a little bit and become like a work of art, but also keeping the figures and the meaning of your talk. So that's my idea that we could play with when we start doing this in person. When we build our institution for the art of Philadelphia, and we can meet in person, have big music festivals, and make the best food, and have gardens where we can grow our food, and have a meditation center, and have a million rooms. I remember when I was in America, I was like, if I had a concrete room with a concrete bed, like in that scene with Doctor Strange, that movie where he goes to the Himalayas and they give him a room, and it's like a really bare bones. I would have loved that. Just to be in that place, being able to learn this, having spent my whole life doing it on my own, to be around people who are actually in the game, and to be around a master like Pierre, I would have loved that. I wouldn't have needed anything else. Literally nothing else. Just a place to park my body at the end of the day. Like that Doctor Strange movie. But in the Doctor Strange movie, they do come in and say, oh, here's the Wi-Fi password. So that would be handy too. Because the talks were often being recorded, and we could review them afterwards, get sent a link and stuff. So, in our vision for a future where we're learning this together, thumbs up. A big building with concrete rooms, so you got a place to sleep, always. Now, living in the dystopian hellscape of late-stage capitalism, ruled by people who are themselves ruled by their pathologos, every day I leave my house, I see poor human beings sleeping on the street. This should also be a standard for everyone. Everyone should at least have something they can call their own, even if it's a concrete block. To have basic safety, basic human needs. The fact that we don't have it is a disgusting indictment of the world created by this, the Aristotelian causes, the materialist counterattack to actual logos and ousia, which is needed to reach truth and benefit. So, anyway, we can have that in our village and do the thing with the paints. Hey, welcome TV. Long time no see. What's your question? What have you been wondering about lately? What do you mean by owning a concrete wall? Every human being having a place so no one ever has to sleep in the street. And if it's a bare bones $100 basic structure where it's a concrete bed and nothing much else, like in that scene, Doctor Strange, I don't know if you've seen that, where he goes to the Himalayas to study, then yeah. And I was saying how when I went over to the States to study this, and had to pay like thousands of dollars to rent a room, I was thinking, shit, that's expensive as fuck. If only there was a place where anybody could go and have a place to park their body to sleep, that would be ideal. And if I was doing philosophy, that's all that I would want, or anything else. So yeah. A concrete bed built into a concrete wall. If it's the cheapest, obviously we'd want to improve that. There's no reason why it has to be the cheapest. That's just a thing to appeal to the greedy billionaires. Hey, or the government. It's not going to cost much. Right, so the idea of having your own place was at least you have some security. Compared to if you were in that dodgy neighborhood sleeping in the street, you'd probably feel a lot less safe than if you lived in a building with walls and a bed and your own bathroom, wouldn't you say? Basic human necessities. What's your question? What are you wondering about with the self? What's your puzzle that you're carrying with you? Because we only have two choices. We can be carrying with us a puzzle about the true self, making us a walking dialectic, carrying a puzzle about the true, where's my pen? The true definition of the self. Everywhere we go, what's the true nature of self in relation to itself? Carrying that question means that your functioning, the way that you function, self to others or demonstration, will manifest through that puzzle, that question, to carry a question, to be on a quest. Your influence to others or division will be through that lens. And as a result, those other people here, having been affected by your functioning, may themselves become curious about turning upon themselves and wondering about the nature of the self. If we don't decide to do that, the pathologos false definition of the self becomes your way of being, molds your facial expression, dictates how you think and see and anticipate reality, becomes how you project onto the world. Your anger that you demonstrate yourself through, because that false definition is an injustice. And it's also a remnant of an injustice you faced in your origin scene. And as a result, you will function in a negative way in the world. And other people will then be influenced and become zombies themselves, especially if you have any influence over them. And then they will then reflect back and become a negative idea of the self. That's the perpetuating zombie virus of the human condition. That's the significance of the pathologos. We're a walking dialectic, whether we like it or not. Our only true decision, do we want it to be a question about the truth of self, or are we going to give up, have a loser mentality for losers, and allow our pathologos false idea of the self, not a question, certainty. I know what I am. I know the truth. Look how certain I am. And I'm going to beat up anyone who disagrees with me. That's the pathologos. If you don't decide to carry with you a question about the true definition of the self, the pathologos certainty, not a question about the self, certainty of the false idea of the self, becomes the dictating force in your entire life. The cause of human problems, the cause of your repeating cycles of suffering, the cause of injustice that repeats continuously in the world to the point where we're still fighting Nazis. That's our choice. So I ask again, do you have a question about the self? Think about that while I take a bio break.